Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Before I dive into today's first look, I do want to mention if you enjoy the Gaming Gang and would like to support the outlet, you can do so in a few ways. First, by utilizing our affiliate links to the One Bookshelf sites such as DriveThruRPG, and to do so, simply visit thegaminggang.com, click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. You can also make a one-time donation by way of PayPal or become a monthly member of our Patreon. You can find links to that down in the show notes. Also in the show notes, you're going to find an invite link to our Discord server. Be sure to hang with the gang over on Discord. So, Kobold Press Week is going to continue, as today I am going to take a first look at the new role-playing game RiverBank from the aforementioned Kobold Press. This cozy role-playing game's 192-page hardcover is available now, carries an MSRP of $49.99. If you want to grab the PDF, you can do so over at DriveThruRPG for $29.99. Having said all that, let's swing on over to the other camera, because here I've got RiverBank. A couple of things to mention before we get stuck in. First of all, my friends over at Kobold Press were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this first look with you. It's important you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of the book, but I do want to give you a good feel for what you're going to find inside. Let's take a look at the back. Tea, poetry, and total disaster. It is a truth universally acknowledged that somewhere between the first dainty sip of tea and the final venomously hurled piece of cake, Aunt Alice's bridge game had taken a regrettable turn. In the RiverBank role-playing game, you and a few reputable, or otherwise, animal friends reside in an idyllic English countryside setting created by award-winning writer Kij Johnson. Weave a cozy narrative of social adventures, escalating situations, and impending disaster with more than a few unexpected twists. Celebrate festivals, attend Miss Badger's literary salons for the hors d'oeuvres, if nothing else, and nurture, occasionally sabotage, relationships with one another and a charming cast of non-player characters. Welcome to the RiverBank. Your story is about to begin. First thing we'll do is take a peek at the credits page. A lot of folks worked very hard to bring this to life, so let's give credit where credit is due. So this is a cozy role-playing game. I have to say, I think this is probably the first cozy styled role-playing game I've ever taken a peek at. And I am intrigued by this because from what I've heard through the grapevine, this is kind of a unique role-playing game, not only setting-wise, but mechanically as well. So we're going to find out a lot more. All right. Taking a peek at our table of contents, we've got Welcome to the RiverBank, then Animals and Character Creation, Locales and Situations, RiverBank Character Sheet, which I guess that's kind of funny that that's the chapter name. Then we've got Locations, How to Run RiverBank, RiverBank Situations, and it looks like we've got 3 appendices. Maybe we'll have like an introductory adventure or 2 in the mix there. I don't know. RiverBank is a cottagecore role-playing game designed for adults and adults to be, inspired by The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame, the books of Beatrix Potter, and other animal tales across history, as well as the light fiction and children's literature of the Victorian and Edwardian eras and later. In it, you play a civilized, anthropomorphized animal character in an idealized countryside that resembles post-Edwardian England. There are motor cars, photography, and great houses, and you might wear spats. Overseen by your game master, you and your animal friends have parties, plans, and adventures, and get into the sorts of trouble your personalities dictate. Anything from ambitiously promising to run the stick fair game booths to hosting your troublesome nephew, from outfitting an all animal expedition to the North Pole, or maybe just the head of the river, to stealing an aeroplane, perhaps accidentally. You may have interactions with the wide world and the human people so common there, visiting the village or even town, traveling to the lakes or Bath, or calling out a publisher when your very important book comes out. RiverBank is not heroic fantasy, except insofar as you may find yourself called on to rescue a handkerchief that is fluttered into the bull's pasture, or to distract an appalling relative as your friend slips out the back door. While characters certainly can start a battle or climb a forbidden tower, RiverBank prioritizes entertaining minor trouble and social interactions over conventional combat or dramatic physical feats. All right, then we get into a little bit about what is a role-playing game, what is this world, what you're going to need to play. So here are some terms here. So it's pointing out what's different about this game. You've got deeds and side effects. Characters can succeed at most realistic actions if the players are willing to take chances that may make things worse in other, sometimes spectacular ways. We have the random use of stats and summoning Pother. RiverBank uses only 4 character stats, and they don't operate quite the way they do in other games. The stats, charm, intrepidity, I guess, Pother and sense, or chips for short, are part of how you build a challenge number. You determine which stat to use randomly with a die roll. The stat you build on may affect the role-playing aspect of how a deed is done. It does affect failure side effects and deeds involving non-player characters known as faux deeds. The animality poetry range. You might think of animality as referring to one's baser instincts or animal nature, while poetry, you may say, invokes one's aesthetic impulses and creative urges. Characters embody these two forces in different amounts at different times. You have haphazardry. Adventures or situations that the characters encounter will evolve and become more complicated across a game session, based in part on the players' and game masters' decisions. But whatever else may be happening, the characters get detailed at arbitrary intervals when the haphazardry timer goes off, usually every half hour. Drawing a haphazardry card at this point adds another problem to the mix. Anything from a lost pet to everyone getting hungry. Okay. And we also have the between times. Each RiverBank session starts with the between times, when the players and game masters sketch out how the characters spent the days, weeks, or seasons since the last game session. RiverBank is meant to be a cozy place where, for all the fluster and fuss brought on by a situation, animals mostly just enjoy their lives, going on sledding parties and walking their pets, learning French cookery, and listening for the first cuckoo of spring. The players share their characters' interim intentions and actions during the between times section of gameplay and learn a few things they didn't know, determined by the game master in drawing between times cards. Aha! All right. Then we get into our character creation, talking about peculiarities, knacks, and insufficiencies. So every animal has basic characteristics based on their sort, such as a bat having wings or a newt having a sticky tongue. When you select a sort of animal, you received an innate abilities for that sort. These are your innate peculiarities. Then you select 3 personal peculiarities from a list. So then we have knacks. Looks like things that the characters have special expertise, skills, or abilities to make them better than usual at specific actions. So I guess kind of like skills would be. And then we have insufficiencies. These are impairments you roll for. Many times an insufficiency affects your ability to perform certain deeds, but others make you clumsy or liable to swoon. So I have charm. So it looks like that's having an appealing personality. And then we have the intrepidity. That does not roll off the tongue. You want to say, okay, so that's being bold, dauntless, gutsy, stalwart. Pother is a delicious English word meaning fuss or trouble. If you have high pother, you're a chaos magnet. And then we have sense. If you have high sense, you are grounded, level-headed, rational, reasonable, and sensible. I would take a guess, probably like an owl character would have a higher sense. So you're going to start off by selecting an animal. So we have 16 different animals here. Yeah, including an owl. There we go. Cool. We've got badger, crow, duck, goose, or heron, fox, hedgehog. So list of those. So we get some surnames. That's kind of cool. Then it looks like we're going to get the information about each of these animals. And it looks like we get a breakdown of what are ordinary animals. So here we've got a lizard or newt, right? So it talks about riverbank lizards and newts, and then ordinary lizards and newts, because our characters live alongside normal animals, as far as I understand. Okay. So you're going to pick your animal. You're going to select your peculiarities, which I'm sure there's a fairly long list here. So believes in the unexplained, gives not a damn, has a pet, is dramatic, is poorish. Looks like we got a few there. You're going to apply your elective stat points. So you must get some points here to spend on your 4 attributes. Then you can select your knacks. We got a list right there. Okay. Like clever with numbers, ingratiating, a night owl. So you could be an owl who's also a night owl. And then I think these are going to be the insufficiencies. Oh, these are entanglements. So yeah, so you're going to also have an insufficiency, and then you also have an entanglement, such as appalling relatives, pets. It's like your pets are bugs. So then we have character building tokens. While RiverBank assumes the characters have access to the basics of life, certain needs or desires may require extra resources. When creating your character, you receive tokens you can use to acquire these exceptional items. The exact number of starting tokens depends on whether you have certain personal peculiarities. So if you're comfortably off, you get 8. If you're dependent, you get 7. If you're poorish, you only get 4. All other cases, you will have 5. Looks like we got a list of different items there. And I'm sure if something's not there that you want, just going to talk to your game master about that. Then you're going to round out your character. Okay, then we get locales and situations. And I guess situations are kind of our adventures, our encounters. So we've got our rules. So we already took a peek at the between times. So we have a situation. So we introduce a situation. After the between times, what you might think of as the main event begins, a scenario or adventure planned, or perhaps designed by your game master. This adventure is the situation you find yourself in. Chapter 6 includes various complete situations ready to play, designed for a game master who would like extra support or didn't have a lot of time to prepare. Okay. The situation starts as either exciting or regrettable. It also has a goal as well as stakes. And the situation is usually started by the catalyst character. And then a situation has a commencement. Then we'll have the plot thickening. So then we have our deeds. I believe deeds are actions. How deeds work. So it looks like here's the steps to deeds, and then we get an example of a deed. I would think that the mechanics of this game are going to be fairly light, but they do strike me as being pretty unique because we have this animality poetry range. Seems like, how much like a beast is your character, how much like maybe a civilized person your character is. That's kind of cool. We have a deed scale, so simple and complex. We have deed categories. So attention, braininess, clever pause, discretion, sway, valor. I gotta be honest, just kind of flipping on through this, I would certainly get a kick out of playing a character in this. I'll tell you that much. All right, so this is going through like success and failure. Then we got our faux deeds. I am going to review RiverBank, so I will get into a lot more detail about the mechanics. So we already saw that you take your 4 different attributes and you're going to roll randomly to see which one you're going to use. And then we have the AP range. That's the animality poetry range. It says it comes up frequently outside of deed completion. For existence, a haphazardly card may instruct all characters to take an animality point immediately. In this case, the players each move the counter on their AP range 1 step in the direction of animality. Oh, so you're going to actually have a range of the different scales on your player character sheet, I guess. These some of the NPCs. Yep. Some of our non-player character animals. And these are pre-generated NPCs here. Looks like we got quite a few of these as well. Votes for women, also animals. Remember, this is supposed to be post-Edwardian, supposed to be kind of probably late, very late Victorian era, especially if we have some motor cars. But those would be, the earliest. Looks like we've got some humans as well. Getting into our ordinary animals. So this chapter was called the character sheet, but this looks like this is kind of our NPC collection as well as our bestiary. So here we got locations. Where are you? English history is well documented with primary and secondary texts, but most of us base our mental image of what old England looks like on books, art, shows, and movies curated with varying degrees of accuracy. This is perfectly fine. RiverBank is a game, not a thesis, but it leaves gaps in providing what the game master and players might need. When filling a gap in knowledge, a trained and careful historian, anthropologist, ethnologist, or archaeologist often can make a very good guess. For instance, we can guess a cottage anywhere at any time has a garden, even if there is no documentary evidence, because growing things is a comparatively easy and cheap way to generate food. Further, we can guess that there are flowers because many people value beautiful things and flowers are free. I am actually really digging the way this is written. This has a very nice kind of casual vibe to it, which once again, this is a cozy game, or I guess the official term is cottagecore. Let me get a little gazetteer here. Getting into just some details about places around the river. Oh, we even get a map. Oh, here we have locations away from the riverbank. So we've got the town, which is London. A little information about London there. Now we're into our Game Master section, how to run RiverBank. This chapter focuses less on playing the game and more on running the game. This is the Game Master's role. You combine the published materials with your own imagination and expertise to curate an experience players can enjoy. Being the Game Master may seem intimidating. What if you get a number wrong? What if people get bored? What if you forget to set the haphazardry timer? Fear not, it's really not that hard. And many people actually prefer this role to that of a player. If you've never acted as a game master before, it's giving you some tips there. Talking about running situations. Ad hoc sessions, so game sessions without a situation. A campaign, so a year-long campaign. That's cool. And it looks like we're going to get into the situations here. So we've got the King's birthday cake. It's an exciting situation. All out of pipe cleaners. A solo adventure is a regrettable situation. Then we will get into our appendices. I think this is where we've got our decks of cards too. Yep, our between time cards. So just use a regular deck of cards, and it looks like each of the suits and cards are presented here. And then we've got the same with our haphazardry cards. I would take a wild stab in the dark that Kobold Press probably also has these decks available for sale. Here's our character sheets. Kind of cool. So front, and this looks like this is our back. Yeah. Nice. We've got a reference sheet for the Game Master. Player reference sheet. And then looks like we've got a little map. Yep, sure enough. Nice. It's the RiverBank and its environs. Sweet. All right. So that is a first look at RiverBank from Kobold Press. Once again, I will have a review of RiverBank in the not too distant future. All right, that is it for this time out. Kobold Press Week is going to wrap up with my review of Monster Vault 2, so stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already, and if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. It'll not only let you know when I share videos such as this first look, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and until I see you next time, certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.